Megan.
Hello and welcome to the Leftover Rewatch. Sorry we're a little late. I had computer problems, but we're here now. How's it going, guys?
Excellent.
Good.
Great.
Are you ready to talk about this episode?
Absolutely.
Totally.
Let's talk about the hotness of Gladys.
Kevin shirtless throughout half the episode.
Well, I think the new ratings are slipping a little bit. They had to do something, right?
Let's do it.
Angry Kevin. We start off the episode. Gladys and Patty are having a stare down conversation, right?
Yep. Totally.
And
Well, no, wait. Before that, there's a little bit of a stoning we need to talk about.
The
well, the stoning's after this.
stoning happens after.
No, the stoning is the first thing that happens in the entire episode. Oh, wait. You're wrong. I'm wrong. You're right. I'm going to shut up now.
Yeah. How about you just zip it?
You're throwing me off there. I'm like,
Yeah.
It's okay. It's okay, Ethan. It's been a long day, right? Weather's crazy. The whole. But Gladys and another GR are walking along. This old dude falls down with his groceries. Help! Help! And it looked like the one GR wanted to help.
Mm-hmm.
But Gladys had said, nope. We're just walking right by him. So any thoughts on that? From what we know in the episode, because Gladys, I guess, was breaking there for a while after her son died, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah. I mean, it just shows the complete suppression of feelings, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
it
then-
kind of strengthened her resolve, kind of what Patty said.
She's hard again. She's.
Well, I mean, that first silent talk they have is basically saying, okay, you've reached as top as you can go. I feel like the number 2 person in the GR is the person that takes on this burden, this martyrdom, whatever this is. So
Okay. Then the one GR goes into a convenience store, and Gladys is kidnapped, dragged by several people, taped to a tree, has rocks thrown at her. She's not talking. I give her credit. She's not talking yet. And finally she goes, please stop. Please stop. And they don't smash. That was a pretty graphic scene. I mean, that was
Yeah.
the magic of Hollywood. At least I think it was.
Well, I think
Well,
at the
really-
time that was considered like the most gruesome scene on television.
It was pretty gruesome.
And has anything
Rose-
taken place since? Maybe the guy's eye in Deadwood. But this is
Well, that was actually before the leftovers. That's a pretty gruesome scene.
Yeah.
Rose says they claim to have no feelings, but they're always angry. Good point. So, do we want to go into who we think? Did we ever find out who stoned Gladys?
Should we leave that for the spoilers?
It's in a later episode
Okay.
this season.
'Cause I'll be honest with you. I can't remember.
I'll let you know.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I can't remember. I was like going, I know we talked about it, but I can't remember who.
Well, I'm not going to not let you know at the end of this episode.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks.
Okay.
Did anybody count how many times she got hit before she spoke?
Certainly not. How many?
I don't know. I didn't either.
4, 18, 15, 16?
Yeah, if it was lost, it'd be one of the numbers.
Yeah.
I caught myself looking at some numbers this episode. I was like, better not.
Well, the one thing I did notice that the people throwing the rocks had pretty good aim. They didn't miss.
I mean, they were going straight for her face.
Yeah, so they had to be athletic.
They're not the only ones that had a no-hitter, buddy.
Yeah.
In my segment after the spoiler, I have some words to say about this, and specifically about what Jack just said. So I'll stay silent right now.
Eckhart, was there a crackpot theory on the original cast? Did you listen to it about who did that?
We shall talk about that later.
Okay.
Mm.
All right. Okay. I don't remember. But I watch it. Can I say who I think it was right now? I thought it was Patty and the GR
Interesting.
because of the way they had the conversation, and she said, "Yes, I'll." Whatever she said when they were staring at each other, that Gladys knew she was being offered up. Anyway, that's
okay.
but I honestly can't remember what. But then Patty wakes everybody up, hitting the pan. At this point, does anybody like Patty?
No.
She's sassy. That's fine. I like her underlining the words. That's just the best.
Yeah. I don't know. And then I noticed something I don't think I ever noticed before. Are the majority of the GR women? There seems like there's more women than men. Or, or just the women have the bigger roles.
Well, when Meg showed up, there were a lot of men there. Like there were several guys, right? Telling her about the oatmeal and things like that. But I'd say probably, in this town, maybe more women.
Yeah. Well, that's what I meant in this town.
From what we've seen, I'd say probably, yeah.
Okay. I didn't count, but I never really noticed before. And I go, but it seems like, well, the women in the GR have this, at least in the show, have the bigger role.
Absolutely.
Right. They tend to focus on, yeah.
Yeah. Then as they're looking for Gladys, they go to the spot where she disappeared. They have their flashlights, and Dog Killer shows up and kills some dogs.
And it's all the craziness of the leftovers. Anything that you mention when you're talking with someone else about it to this point, all in one shot, really. You have this crazy dog killer coming out with a gun. You have this beautiful shot of all of them with the flashlights. It's kind of like an action scene almost.
And it all makes sense from a rational standpoint, which we find out later in the episode.
Right. Let's see. Lori finds Gladys. And she gets kind of emotional about it. She's like, she doesn't say anything, but she's like, then Kevin wakes up with a bad dream. Does Kevin just always wake up with a bad dream?
He does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, certainly.
And they do that so well in the sense that there's almost no pause between the scenes, so that you always have to ask yourself, did he just dream this?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely how they set it up.
Mm-hmm.
And then Kevin wakes up. Kevin's missing all of his white shirts.
They departed.
Yeah. Now
like
we're thinking.
eagle.
Now we're thinking maybe that the GR stole them or something.
That was almost your crackpot theory for this week.
Oh, was it?
Okay. But I thought what's interesting about the scene was in the background, the television that talks about the raid of some other random cult. And it really does emphasize in terms of world building that this is a world where, you've got GR, you've got Wayne's thing that was destroyed. You have this thing on television. You have the thing that Tom pretended to be to get into So this is like a world where there's just a lot of cults.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They changed the name of the agency to the Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms,
Explosives and cults.
Well, Patty goes actually to Kevin's house, and she needs help. Was she sincere?
The correct answer is no, but we'll get to that later.
She's doing a good job, though, here.
And then you have Meg is, talking to Lori. Lori's like, obviously having a panic attack, and she goes, well, are you surprised someone got killed?
Yeah.
Because of how you treat people and because no one seemed upset that Gladys was killed, right?
I think Lori seemed upset. She's the only one, though. I didn't see any of the other GR.
Well, they're not supposed to show emotion, so.
Yeah.
If I don't say this now, I'm going to forget, but later on, Meg says something very similar to a very important character in the final season. Do y'all know what I'm talking about? I made a note. We can talk about it later, but basically exactly what she said. She tells it again to somebody else.
I think I might know what you're talking about.
Okay.
Yep.
It's worded differently, but she says it, and
There's an outside chance I might know what you're talking about.
Can you just talk about what line? Is it a line from the scene?
She's talking about tigers, or if you're around them long enough, they bite your face off or whatever.
Okay.
Oh, because of Siegfried and Roy, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
But the interesting thing about the scene as I'm looking at, and by the way, I'm actually looking at the script as we're doing this now, is she talks about how I guess I should be scared, but I'm not. Is that weird? And it's interesting because it does. One of the themes of the episode is how the GR is about suppressing your emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Except for, as somebody pointed out in the chat, but they're always angry.
Yeah, Rose said that.
But, she's, after talking about how, are you surprised that we got attacked? It's only a matter of time. And then she says, I guess I should be scared, but I'm not. Is that weird? So she started to realize, whatever they're doing, this routine and whatever they're doing, is starting to, chip away at several of their emotions. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Meg doesn't care about dying.
Well, I mean, it's another spot to building this Meg that we see later. You know what I mean? It's another major building block.
Yeah.
So,
to do a little pushback on the they're all angry comment, I think that they showed up in the very first episode when Nora's speaking and all that, and I mean, is that nobody seemed really angry? The angry people to me were the people attacking the cult. The cult just went the GR just went there and held up signs. Does that mean they're angry? They're not
well,
killing people, but
Patty showed some anger at times. I mean,
mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Throughout the show's history, there's a level of frustration and anger that a person is at before they go into that house.
Right, but I think they're not angry once they're there.
No, I think we're watching Meg in her process of of shedding that away.
Yeah, I feel like they're all just getting pictures and all this other stuff, but they're just like a blank slate. I mean, that's what the white is for, that they wear. So I think they try their best to not use any emotions, but obviously we can't do that.
And then Kevin talks with Dog. Do we know Dog Killer's name yet?
We find out in this scene right here.
Yeah.
Because he waves to the animal control guy and says, "Hey."
Oh, and the guy says Dean. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I just like how he's always there. He always seems to be there when something's going on. And then Kevin goes to the school. Jill sees him, and starts to cry.
Mm-hmm.
I thought this was a pretty good scene when she thought something had happened to her mom.
Yeah. And then after realizing that it wasn't her, says, I shouldn't have cried for her. She wouldn't have done it for me. I mean, what a powerful statement is that?
Right.
And then
would Lori have cried?
Yeah, I think she would have.
Mm-hmm.
Personally.
If Jill died, yeah, for sure. But that doesn't mean that she's loving Jill in the way that Jill needs to be loved.
Right.
Because she's a bad mother.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and Kevin sees the cheerleaders and realizes he can probably save the world.
Oh man! Patty picks up Lori from the hospital, but they can listen to music. They can listen to Hall & Oates, right? Well, that was Hall & Oates, right?
Listen, I got a whole thing about the music. I don't know if you want it now or later, but I'll do it now. Later will be other stuff. Hold on, I want to get to it. Okay, so here's about the music real quick, all right? Because we did a lot of fair talking about other music on our chat earlier this week. Sorry about that, everyone else. The Doobie Brothers, Hall & Oates, Captain and Tennille. In Lost, we have the Doobie Brothers, right? Again. Mm-hmm. No, Three Dog Night in Lost.
Three Dog Night, yeah.
Three Dog Night, Islands in the Stream in Watchmen, Careless Whisper in Watchmen, Olivia Newton-John in season 2 of The Leftovers, Take On Me in season 3 of The Leftovers. We keep going back to these sugary 80s pop bubblegum things that Damon Lindelof loved, and I love too.
Yeah.
And that made a big appearance here in this episode, another difference in this episode. I know Captain and Tennille was earlier, but, these are the threads that follow.
But the point I was trying to get is music's entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
if the GR are not supposed to feel anything, should they be listening to music?
It's their day off.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. As we come to find out, this is just a one-off special moment.
But it's so powerful in the sense that it's so unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But
I don't think Lori expected it.
Yeah, and it's just like even that doesn't Patty even do like a little like shimmy as she's driving, right? And it's like it's the first variation that we see in Patty the character from everything that we've seen so far.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then we see Kevin arguing with Lou for calling the feds.
I love this scene.
They just don't like each other. I wanted to see Kevin hit him. Is that wrong?
Well, that's the thing. Like as they're arguing back and forth, like I forgot, what the specifics of the dialogue, but I'm hearing myself calling him exactly what Kevin called him at the end of it. You fat.
But for Kevin is getting unhinged and unprofessional. And it happens.
Oh God, this has been since day one.
Yeah, but it is getting worse, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that he's got this cloud over him, where he has to over 2 episodes where he has to tell his daughter they're getting divorced.
But there's another reason, and I think this goes through this is kind of a subplot for this episode, is that, and you see it later on with the conversation he has with the Fed agent. He obviously doesn't want this issue, which involves, somebody who he loves, to reach on some sort of federal level.
Right, exactly.
So of course he's upset, and it's like, and you kind of only get this when you think about it, but it's like he's already beefing with this guy. And Jack made a great point in the original podcast saying that this guy hates Kevin because this guy was passed over for the job, probably because he's senior, right?
Right.
But you could see like the emotion here is more than just Kevin unraveling. It's like, why did you call in the feds? Like that cannot be good. Like we have to solve this GR problem ourselves because this involves our loved ones.
Right.
So,
well, this guy obviously doesn't care because he made the comment. I wrote it down.
He's just reading off the manual.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she just grew on a tree or something like that. He really doesn't care about the GR. He has no sympathy for him. Lou does anyway. I know he came on Hinge, but I was really rooting for. I remember originally saying, "Punch him in the face, Kevin. Punch him in the face."
I think Kevin's also upset because some of the comments that guy made, and I think that he's worried that if this starts to get more involved with other people, his wife can be at risk because he still cares about her well-being.
That's exactly right.
But going back to when Patty picked Lori up at the hospital, I did want to make a note that the doctor looking at Lori did say that she had a panic attack, and he I guess he gave her some medication, and he said that if you needed any more, you would have to call, a psychiatrist, which is very interesting.
Which I didn't put together until you just said it. So
really,
yeah. Well, I took lots of notes, but I missed that one, I guess.
Really?
Moving on.
I actually wrote it down, but that's because that's a big spoiler later on, right? In the
Sorry.
season.
I mean, I just said that. I said that's important.
No. I'm just
that could mean
I'm giving Ethan a hard time.
Lori could go see a psychiatrist. She could. She may marry a psychiatrist. We don't know. We have never seen this show before. We're guessing.
Yes, we don't know. We just have no idea. And some of us didn't even care about it. So.
Gladys is hot. Has that been up there this whole time?
Yes.
It has. I just found that.
Let's see. After that, the mayor talks with Kevin. She's always there to calm Kevin down, isn't she?
But I have to say, so far, I don't think she's the kind of the orders or advice she's given. I don't think any of it has been like tactically wrong. It's just her delivery is so grating.
Yeah, she's just very, it's
no
like
nonsense.
She could be a GR. She shows no emotion. Just Except when she's talking to Kevin's dad, she gets a little, because they're watching Perfect Strangers, and who doesn't laugh during Perfect Strangers?
Well, this is our small kind of, sense of the government. And with, the mayor being so like follow the rules, gung ho like that, I think that that's probably happening in a lot of places and maybe on a higher level, especially depending on who departed in the government, big government, small government, local towns, whatever. So I think that probably adds to her like, yes means yes, no means no. We have got to stay on track now, or else everything's going to fall apart like it already has.
I do like the next scene where Patty and Lori are checking into a motel, but it's Lori sitting outside by the van. She's staring at the little girl staring at her. I think she was thinking, I used to have a daughter. Did I? I don't remember. But I like the mom's reaction was she goes, stop staring. And she goes, you too.
Yeah. I love that scene.
And Lori's like,
and that's such a great snapshot of the world that these people live in, right? Which is that obviously that mother was like, she knew that she was a cultist.
Yeah.
Because it's just so common now, right?
Yeah. Like we mentioned before, I just thought it was a great scene. Kevin was outside drinking some beer, but he wakes up to dogs jumping on his car.
And even here, he looks like he's waking up from some kind of
And the guy was like, he says, "Yeah, oh, you're investigating. Okay, don't do too good of a job of investigating." So either he had something to do with it. That was my first thought. Or he said, I don't care about the GR. They could all die. What do I care?
I think it's what Kevin says later on. It's open season on you people.
Yeah.
I think it is. Basically. I mean, everybody.
Would he try to protect them if Lori wasn't there?
We'll never know.
That's a good question.
That's a great question. I guess I would think he would, because that's his job. I mean,
yeah,
but I think he's really invested because Lori's there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the more killing, the more work he has to do, right?
Yeah,
paperwork. You got to deal with Lou. You got to deal with the feds.
I did like how the mayor really handed it to Lou too, and I was like, that was great that she took up for Kevin in that moment after there being so much back and forth between them two up until this episode. So.
Well, I don't think she wants the feds there either.
Right. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Because once the feds are there, they take over.
She said they have a lot of eyes on them.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So I guess I don't know who that would be. But,
Lou.
Well, Lou.
I think Lou just wanted some attention.
I think Lou knew it would piss Kevin off, and he had a chance to follow the rules, and he had a solid argument, which he kind of does, and decided he wanted to piss off Kevin.
It's not hard to piss off Kevin. It doesn't take
when
much.
The universe is really effing with Kevin. Yeah, you've got a lot of things going on with him.
Let's see. Lori wakes up and Patty has left some clothes for her. Now, how did Patty get? I guess she had the key for the room, but Lori is a pretty sound sleeper.
Yeah, she woke up at 2:38 in the afternoon.
Is that what time it was?
Yeah, I noticed that too.
I did not notice that.
But that's okay.
I was still working on that. I was just working on that psychiatrist thing. I don't care about that. Patty is talking in the restaurant because it's a day off, and Lori just goes, Lori ain't having it. Lori ain't talking.
Oh my God. I'm getting chills. Y'all, this is like one of my favorite scenes of the whole show.
And then Kevin calls agent, was it Kalani? Kalani. He calls Agent Kalani. Of course, he doesn't answer the phone. Then Kevin goes, I thought one of the funnier scenes, Kevin goes to the cleaners to get his shirts. Now, I got to say this. It's a small town. If the chief of police is looking for his clothes, as we call Officer Mustard Stain, right? Is that what they called him? Wouldn't you look a little harder to find the shirts for the chief of police? If you want protection from, if you seriously, if someone's going to break into your thing, the last person you want to piss off is the chief of police.
Right?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, go ahead.
No, I just agree. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's really like an unrealistic scene, just because it comes into play later, of course, in a big way. But they really, really, really paid him zero mind.
Yeah, I feel like whoever they assigned the role to write this scene didn't do a good job. That's all I'll say. An uncharacteristically poor job.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean,
think
it's setting up a scene later on,
Right.
but it just, for me it wasn't believable.
I don't think it mattered if it was, the chief of police or not. I think that business had absolutely horrendous customer service. If anybody goes in and says, "Hey, I think, could you double check in the back for me?" I mean, any like nice person. I mean, as long as they're not slammed, but I mean, they were kind of busy. But still, like when he's giving you all these reasons, explaining why he does not have them, like double check,
Yeah.
But okay, I'm going to take a step back here. We actually, when we combine this scene and the next scene, we never ever got clarification if those were actually his shirts.
Oh,
No.
okay.
So
I
that
did not consider that. Actually, never thought of that.
So that when think about it like this, from just an operations standpoint, he has this information in front of him that should have all the information to be able to deal with this issue, right? And we don't know what he says to his colleague because they're speaking like Hindi or Urdu or something like that, right?
Mm.
And so it's kind of like he probably wasn't. We don't know what he's asking him, but we can't just assume that they didn't try to look for them. Okay, so again, this is nitpicking, but to me that scene is about showing that he's pretty sloppy compared to Nora, who always has a ticket. Yeah. And it sets up the conversation that they have about the shirts having departed, right? Yeah. And there becomes a double entendre there with, do you think we're ever going to find them? And she says, probably not.
And then Nora says they'll turn up if you just stop looking for them.
For them, right.
Yeah.
Which is, of course, the most ironic thing of the whole episode, right?
It's a nice flirty scene going back and forth.
Plus, we need to be reminded that Nora's here.
Yeah, yes. Because, yeah.
Yeah, I just didn't like the guy's attitude. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that it showed them really looking because it was like an open area back there, and they, do the conveyor belt to look, and they didn't do that, just real quick for him. And so I felt like they didn't try real hard. So yeah, I guess at the end, like you mentioned about the shirts, it could have been a grab some off the shelf. But
because he grabs just the first thing there.
Yeah, he grabbed 4, and then he grabbed 4 later on. He didn't grab; they weren't all together, right? The shirts weren't all together, right? He grabbed them. Here's some. Oh, and here's some other ones. They weren't together because usually what they usually do. My dad used to run the dry cleaners and used to zip tie them together, not zip tie them. We did the little metal thing, twisties.
I think this might come down to if the hangers that he brought home matches his hangers in the house, because how else are we supposed to know that do they fit? I mean, they have to be his shirts, right?
Well, looking at him and me, it could have been my shirts.
Everything he thinks departs and it's an item. It always turns up. The bagel, the shirts.
Yeah. Yeah, Rose said when I really watched, I thought they were maybe the GR took his shirts.
That's what Jack thought too.
Yeah. So anyway, I just didn't I like the scene between him and Nora though. I do. I got my ticket. It's flirty. So it's really setting them up. And he says goodbye, Nora, or says see you later, whatever he said.
And that brings up another good thing. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead.
I feel like had that been Nora, they would have looked. So that's why I'm saying I don't think the chief of police thing matters. Titles aren't we talked about in an earlier, thing that things are just kind of thrown out the window. That's titles, who you are, what you did, whatever. And I think that Nora's situation, like we saw in the coffee shop earlier, where everybody, gravitates to her to help her out with whatever, because of her situation. I think that had she been the one to ask, they would have been like, oh, sure. And they would have like stopped the whole thing, made everybody wait.
But maybe they wouldn't have.
I mean,
I hear what you're saying, but they had such an attitude.
Yeah,
he just had a crappy attitude.
And maybe knowing Nora, maybe she knows to hold on to that ticket because that at that place they are, really, hardcore about having your ticket or something. Because she knocked the coffee off the table, but like here she comes fully prepared to make sure she's doing all the right things. She might not be getting extra treatment, like you said. So anyway, thoughts, but yeah.
We'll never know, but it's good discussion. Kevin talks with Matt because he thinks Matt could be a suspect. I mean, they did take his church after all.
Yep.
Do we think Matt could be a suspect? Does Matt have it in him?
I remember originally watching this and thinking, no. I think Kevin was drawing at straws that weren't there.
Well, you got to pull out. You got anyone that has. I'm watching this John Wayne Gacy thing on Peacock. Oh my God, what a brutal! It's terrible police work. Let's just say that. I mean, if you have the Peacock network, watch it. It's it's fascinating. Anyway, but Kevin wants to have a. When he talked to me, I forgot to say he wants curfew, and the townspeople are not happy about curfew.
My favorite quote from that scene, the curfew scene. Are we there yet? Is that where we're at? Yeah. Is Dean when he decides to and Kevin takes it so personally when he decides to talk. But the thing that stabbed me in the heart watching that scene was, it just doesn't seem fair us locked inside when we didn't do anything wrong. That was a bit 2020 close to home, if you ask me.
Yeah.
And how they didn't want to. I mean, I get it that the GR's causing controversy and trouble or whatever, but they didn't want to try to protect everybody, and as a collective they didn't want to come together to protect a one, which says a lot about society there and how it's going in the show, but also here, because that's why it's really hard to talk about the show, because especially during this time, because you have a lot of people who have just died in America, and then you have, like you just mentioned, regarding this, one scene. So it's kind of difficult, and it's a depressing show. So we're glad that y'all stick with us. We're trying to make it fun.
Yeah, I want to say a few things about that too. I mean, I think this scene was directed incredibly powerful in the sense that, the mayor and Kevin entered this thinking it's a formality,
right?
That they're going to implement this curfew because that's the right thing to do when there's been a murder, right? Mm-hmm. Murderer is still at large, and you want to make sure that there's no retaliation and stuff like that. But instead, it becomes a situation where Dean stands up and basically acts like a demagogue and fires up basically the people there, and makes it into, instead of as Caleb said, instead of let's solve this, it becomes an us versus them.
Right.
And he's just making it worse. So this is the type of thing that's most likely to happen in a situation like this. So I thought they did an incredible job of showing how just the norms break down in situations like these.
Mm-hmm. And then the Coal Council voted no. They didn't back Kevin up. So maybe going back to the dry cleaner, maybe Kevin has a reputation. Maybe doesn't garner a lot of respect.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they know he's been out killing dogs.
Yeah, that's true. I forgot about that. Good point, Ethan.
And
so maybe that's.
Sorry, he took the position that his dad once held. So they're just kind of, privilege. Somebody else may have wanted to be that. I don't know.
Because you think someone would side with the mayor and the chief of police on the council, that they were like, nope.
Yeah,
we're
out. I did. I did think it was weird that like not at least one voted. Like
Because they have to know the mayor was seeing Kevin's dad. So
yeah, that too.
There's something going on with the Garvey family that they don't respect.
I totally agree, and like I was saying with the guy that woke him up walking the dogs, it literally is like everybody versus the GR. They've made it their mission to make it everybody versus the GR. So I wasn't surprised, but no one was going to raise their hand in that rabble about it now and saying yes, we should protect them.
Right.
Yep.
And then Kevin goes looking for Lori. He goes to GR house, talks with Meg. And Meg, because she's not your wife anymore.
Yeah, that was a great line.
It was great. It was delivered great. It hurt. That was said for pain, and it worked.
I wrote in my notes. I was like, Justin Thoreau and Liv Tyler are so hot.
Hey, when she was whispering earlier and the sound dropped out when Lori was passing out, that was definitely some Lord of the Rings elvish action.
Well, she's so soft-spoken and sweet, and you think she's going to say something to him, and then, like you said, she says, she's not your wife anymore, and it's like, okay, you're being nice, now you're not.
Especially given what he says. He says, I'm the only person that gives something about you people, and you won't even tell me where my wife is.
Yeah, because he gives them whistles. Is this scene where he gives them the whistles?
Yeah, and I think, and the more I think about it, this is a perfect like offset to the prior scene of where the people in the town are getting mad, right? So that you really do see like the two sides forming here. Like, and Kevin really is stuck in the middle. So,
totally.
And then we have a great scene between Lori and Patty. Patty does all the talking, but Lori's reaction obviously is great. She wants a doggy bag, and she goes, and the waitress goes, for what? Just bring me the bag. And she talks about how Gladys's son died, and how she was losing her focus, and how she was getting emotional and crying in public. And we can't have that, Lori. We can't have that, Lori. And do you think Lori passed the test because she didn't speak?
Absolutely.
Well, she told her, she said, I brought Gladys here, and she did the same thing you're doing.
Right.
Which I thought meant that she was on the right track, as in she's passing the test. Because Gladys did, and Gladys got to be the martyr.
Yeah. And then Patty goes, do you remember what you told me in my last session? And so that was kind of a big line. References. That was kind of a big line earlier in the episode.
I got that one, Jack.
But that comes later, right? I mean, before that, she says a few really important things, right?
Okay, well, go ahead. I just wrote down some.
What's that?
Yeah.
I only wrote down some because when you're taking notes, I can only go so fast. What did you write down?
What she says to Lori?
Yeah.
About the poll. You want me to read it?
Yeah. This is. I think this is like the closest thing to the dogma of the GR that we get so far, right?
Yeah. So it's actually one of my favorite scenes in the whole show. I think it's beautifully done. The acting is superb. But Patty tells Lori, "I understand the pull," which I think is important. Because we haven't heard them talk about that yet. Like, what is it that makes you stay? What is it that makes you want to leave? There's this pull. So anyway, she says, I understand the pull. I understand your family, your past. I understand that going back to them feels comfortable and easy, because the alternative, what we do, is very, very hard. But then she said, but there can't be any doubt, Lori, because doubt is fire, and fire is going to burn you up until you are but ash.
Yeah.
Beautiful writing.
Yeah.
Writing delivered beautifully.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love the fact that she, I don't know, you tell me, Caleb, maybe I just imagined this, but I almost felt like the Patty character had a bit of a twang when she delivered that. So I don't know if the actress is from the South, but I felt like a little bit of a twang came out that gave it even more resonance.
Well, what is it with how she says Kevin? Remember, that's a whole big thing. Yeah. I don't know if that's a Southern,
because she definitely doesn't have the accent of New York.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, and Jack, I'm sorry that I stopped the process there. I just wanted
No.
to
Like I said, I can only write down so much, and
it's a good episode when I'm busting out like the script, the script web pages that you find out there, and I have whole paragraphs from this episode copied in here. It's really good, and there's a really great connection that I could talk about after we talk about Matt. Yeah.
But after she says the part about her last session, she writes down Neil. Mm-hmm. And then we assume she goes takes a dump in the doggy bag, right?
I want to say this. When this first aired, nobody assumed that. The only reason we assume that is because of something that she says in season 2 to Kellen.
Maybe that's why.
Yeah, but it might be like it. I figured that's what it was when she dropped off the doggy bag. Not here, but when she dropped off the doggy bag, I figured that's what it was.
I do think that, when, like I said, she talks about the pull and everything, and then doubt, and I think that that's like so important because they're like, if you're going to be a part of us, you have got to strip yourself of everything, all the colors about you, literally.
You're lighter.
Yeah. And I think that she's basically saying, like, if you have doubt, it's going to destroy you. If you try to, this pull that you have to go back to your family, if you don't snip it now, it will destroy you. But really, she's just a cult leader wanting her to stay around.
Well, there's a certain parallel between what she said here and probably some things that Holy Wayne said in the first or second episode, or that were relayed via Christine in terms of her absolute faith in whatever he says. But I digress. Let's move on.
Well, we go back to Matt and Kevin. Matt wants to see Gladys, the body. He wants to give her last rites, whatever he wants to do. He wants to do something, and Kevin goes, "No, you're a suspect." And then he goes, "Okay, you can go see him." They're driving along, and they stop at I think the same stoplight that where the pigeons were on top of. And I've noticed one thing: the stoplights in this town take forever. That was a long monologue, a long thing.
There's less people.
Yeah, but he talks about the stoning and all that different stuff, and then it clicks on. They go to the mortuary. Did you have something to say? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying, and Ethan, actually, you go first because we might have found the same thing. You go, Ethan.
Okay. Okay. So there is no yellow light when they stop. It goes right to red, and it pauses until after Matt is done speaking, and then it goes. So I wanted to ask Caleb before I go on, was that just a coincidence?
That the light was I'm sorry, I was reading that comment.
There's no yellow light.
Okay, it goes straight to red, or it's already
goes straight to red when Matt starts talking. And when Matt is done talking, telling his biblical quotes, it goes right to green. So that's
green means go.
Yeah.
So no.
I'm saying there's no yellow light.
Red light, green light.
Same thing.
Is there a place for a yellow light?
Yes.
Okay. It's broken. The end. Nothing else to it.
Okay. That's gonna come back to bite you in about 2.5 seasons, bro. All that coincidence stuff will come back to bite you. I'm saving it up. Okay.
I mean,
lucky for you, Caleb. I won't remember.
Wait until spoilers, because I.
Okay. Well, Matt tells him. He says, "What did Jesus say to you?" And he's from the book of Thomas, who is doubting Thomas, right? If I tell you what he spoke to me, you will pick up rocks and stone me, and fire will come from the rocks and devour you.
Yeah.
You want to tell me that means? It means easier to stay silent than it is to speak the truth. And they're speaking about doubting Thomas, which comes back up later. But, it's doubt is also fire, and fire will burn you up to your ash.
They did such a good job of, and again, I didn't notice this literally until I was reading the script. Right, that there is a symmetry between the scene of Patty talking to Lori and this biblical reference, right? And I actually did a search before the show. I couldn't find anyone to tie them together very well. And I actually will probably do some work to see if there is some sort of a tie. But there's too many, just from a lexical search standpoint, there's too many overlaps for it to just be coincidence, right? But I love the fact that they weave in the fact that what Matt says after that. He says, killing these people is pointless. They don't care because they're already dead. You know what I want to do is I want to bring them back to life. So you're already seeing like what Matt sees at this point in time, what his mission is. And of course that evolves from season 2 to season 3. But it shows like, you know, in this small, almost throwaway scene, we actually learn a lot about Matt.
Yeah.
Totally. And it's compounded by the scene that's later on in the show.
I was just going to say that I made a note of this at the very beginning, that when we started this, that I was an atheist and would be looking at it from that perspective. But I did want to say that probably the reason why Patty's dialogue and Matt sounded so familiar is because it's 2 different cults. It can be seen that way anyway. So I did want to say that could be why they also wrote in for them to be so similar, because they're coming at it from different ways, but the concept is the same. Stay with me, stay in our group, you know.
Yep. So then we go to the morgue, and Gladys has been shipped out. She's already been shipped out. So Kevin's not happy. So he's yelling at what's his? Kalani. I'm sorry, I can read my writing. Kalani. So where do we stand on this? Are we on Kevin's side?
Of course we are. Whose side would we be on?
I'm just saying we're on side because we don't know exactly what the feds are doing right now, and we don't. You know, Lou got his way because it's just going to piss Kevin off even more, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I think as a viewer, you're like, could things just stop happening to Kevin so he can calm down for a minute? So I think that's more so why we're on his side in this moment. But once you hear the other end of the, you know, person on the phone, then I think it switches and you're like, oh, that wasn't a good guy, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, and more importantly, I mean, what you just said, Caleb, like you're hoping that Kevin's life gets a little calmer, but the exact next scene is him trying to turn off the alarm.
Oh my God. Yeah. Like they're just piling it, everything, you know?
Because even like Joe was like, why are we setting this when it has problems and all, you know, all the different stuff? Just set the alarm. Well, who's he worried about? Is he worried about dog killers? Is he worried about people retaliating against his family because they're GRs? And we said maybe before, like the dry cleaner didn't seem to have any respect for him.
Everyone.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's in everyone.
Okay. Because like I said, the episode before, nobody had an alarm. Right?
True.
These people, yeah, but this one, Kevin has one.
Maybe he made a deal to start using it or get one after everyone broke into the houses and took pictures.
Could have been.
Is this his father's house?
Yes.
Okay, it's still his father's house. Okay. See, I was like, I feel like going at it from several different angles. Like he's a police officer, so it would be probably commonplace to have a security system for obvious reasons. And then the fact that it's his dad's house, he may be wanting to protect it, you know, have that extra protection for him. I don't know, in case he gets better.
Protect those ornaments too.
Well, yeah,
Those
that
are
he
high-class
hates or
ornaments.
Jill hates. And then you have the deer or whatever that caused the ruckus. So I think that there's like many reasons why he did that.
Okay. Then we have Patty drops off the bag, has Neil written on it, and she drops it off on someone's porch.
To the dude.
And-
At this point, we don't know who it is, right?
No, we don't know who Neil is.
No.
Mm-mm.
But we're
do
assuming
know,
she dropped off at Neil's porch, right?
Yes.
yeah, we do know that there are now parallel universes in the show because the bag she used originally was brown and the new one is white. So we can use that information moving forward.
All right, you can use that information.
Well, Ro mentioned that in the chat too.
Blooper. Yeah, I wanted to point that out. That's what I was like when I wasn't listening to Ethan. That's the comment I was reading.
And then Kevin finally gets a hold of Kalani.
Yeah.
And the agent, and at first, like I think it was Ethan mentioned, he seemed like a nice guy, and he's like, and all of a sudden it turned like, well, whenever you want, we'll come down there, and there won't be a problem anymore.
Well, yeah, I would. Okay, so I realize on my the second watch through of Leftovers, I've really been like honing in on the issues that deal like with the federal government, right? And let me take a step back. I'm not a libertarian. I'm centrist, stuff like that. But they do such a good job in the show, given that this is a dystopian universe, of showing like what would probably most likely happen with a very strong federal government. And the thing about it is this in many ways is a continuation of the scene of those two bureaucrats discussing, what they should do about Wayne's cult.
Right.
Where they just, because you hear the guy talking and he just sounds like, hey, yeah, I was down in Florida. What's up with the GR? What's up with the chain smoking? And it's like, it makes it sound like such an affable guy. And then his voice timbre changes when he's basically convincing Kevin that they can just, you can wait 4 to 6 weeks, or if you want, we could just eliminate the infestation. And the language that he uses is he describes the GR not as people, but as bugs.
Dehumanize. First
and
step.
the dehumanization. And that's like where the writers did an exceptionally good job in terms of studying history and how autocracy works. And that's why this scene was so chilling, because you can see like Kevin's reactions are becoming more and more halting. As he starts describing, Kalani's voice is different. He says, I can have 3 vans full of armed agents there by the end of the week. They pay a visit to whatever compound these Fs call home, and they get you the results you're looking for, Chief. And like Kevin doesn't respond. Then he goes, this S spreads if you let it. Don't worry about your victim. She doesn't give an S. Worry about your town. And he's basically like just pushing, like doing like the hard sell to send in the troops, basically the scene that they showed at the beginning of the show, in terms of the way that they rated the combat, and obviously what we saw how they handle Wayne. So to me, like as one of the sub themes of the show, to show like how a democratically elected government, how one of their agencies would act in a dystopian society like this is just fascinating.
Yeah.
I have oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. It's a great scene.
I just have so much on this scene simply because on my original like watch of The Leftovers, like I was like, this show is brutal, and this guy's voice, the way it changed my whole attitude kind of towards the show. It really did, because it came out of nowhere. Go ahead. Okay.
And the fact that you don't see his face.
His voice completely changes, and it is so engaging, and it is so like chilling on what they're willing to do. And I just realized watching this this time at 7:00 tonight, because I watched it 3 times this week. This comes with a little bit of an anecdote.
You still missed the side thing 3 times. You shouldn't have admitted that.
I think it's better than that than to watch it and write some stuff down like 2 minutes before it come on. That's all. This comes with a little bit of an anecdote from me that might be boring, but I'm sorry. When a child is going to have a bris, it's a very stressful time for the parents.
Okay.
So we were scheduling my son's bris, and I had a much worse temper back then, and the stress was getting to me. And I told my parents not to invite any more people, and then my dad asked me if he could invite one more person after that, and I totally lost my S all over the place. I like both guns blaring. I lost it. It's whatever, you know what it is like in that first week of having a kid. And it was on text message. And he said back to me like 20 minutes later, last transmission garbled, please resend. Okay?
Wow.
So it was a perfect way to deal with me.
Wow.
Being so angry. And Kalani does this to Kevin. He wipes away. I'm sure Kalani heard every one of those phone messages.
Yeah.
He just dismisses it and says, we're going to move on as though those didn't happen.
Right.
And it was a method that I got from my real life to see what Kalani was doing here. And it just adds another layer to that whole thing.
Well, because if he calls up and screams back at Kevin, then he's not going to get what he wants. He wants to come into town and get rid of the GRs.
Sure.
And
so,
he's like you said, I think you said, Eckhart, that he was trying to get inside. And like we said, when the voice just goes from, shits and giggles to just coldness. It was, like I said, it was a great scene.
So, and that's why, when you tie this scene back to the part where Kevin and Lou are fighting, right? Like, Kevin's reactions at the end as he's really, hesitating. And he's like, the reality is really hitting him there, where it's like, if this isn't handled right, the feds basically would go in there and shoot everyone in that house, including Lori.
Right.
Well, they did at Holy Wayne's compound. So
exactly, and that place down in Florida he was just at.
Yeah.
So
chilling.
Florida. Chilling.
Where my dad lives now. So.
No.
There you go.
And then we have the next scene, which I thought was a pretty funny scene. Kevin's trying to buy some beer, but the clerk doesn't want to sell it to him because he's already inebriated.
Kevin pulls a pretty slick alcoholic's move here. He's so well trained at being able to function while he's on alcohol. He's able to make this kid feel stupid for mispronouncing a word and say he's not drunk at all.
Well, he should be able to pronounce that word if he's selling beer, right?
Yeah, he should. But Kevin was just like, "Oh, I can function drunk better than this dude."
Well, he flashed his badge too, and
Yeah. And he's drinking Heisenbrow.
Heisenbrow. I don't think I've ever had a Heisenbrow.
I don't think it's real.
Okay, then that's why I didn't have it.
There's 2 Google searches for some brewery that doesn't exist in Australia on the internet. I wonder who put that out there. Come on, Leftovers fans. And and people think, and I think too, it's just a shout out to Breaking Bad.
Oh, good
From the Heisenberg principle, right?
Yeah, Heisenberg is the name of the guy in that show.
Yeah, and he called himself after the physicist who basically talked about this whole principle about it's unclear.
Say my name.
It's unclear if something, the state of a quantum particle, what state it's in, right? So in many ways, it could be a reference also to the fact that with the departed, you don't know if they're alive or dead, right?
It's true.
So,
and then we see Kevin. He's there, and he sees the dry cleaner guy is still at the dry cleaners. So he goes over there and he starts banging on the door, let me in, let me in, let me in. Now, again, we talked about Kevin's dad had, it's well known that he lost it, right? And so does this guy think Kevin, well, obviously, he looked like he was losing it.
He's acting like it, yeah.
So he finally lets him in, and he supposedly finds his shirts. So again, do we think they're his shirts?
Have you noticed I haven't said anything about the shirts yet?
He never complains about the size of the shirt, so I feel like they would fit. He wouldn't have took them. Well, he was probably so drunk and it didn't matter, and he was angry. He was going to take whatever the guy gave him. Probably.
He tried to offer to pay. The guy said, "Oh no," and Kevin says, "Thanks."
Yeah, kind of like I asked you to earlier, but.
Is he going to be able to go back to this place again? I mean, how many dry cleaners they have in this town?
No, he's burnt that one. He's got to go elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
But I did do a Google search for trivia for this episode, and I found one interesting piece. There were a couple, but I found one interesting. When Kevin stands up and he puts the beer on his car, and he notices in the back you see a couple penguin toys in the window.
Oh, I didn't see it.
And it's on a wiki I found where it said maybe that's to signify that the score is now Penguin 2, less than 0.
Wow. Good job. And then we go back to GR's house. Meg is ready now. She's ready. I'm ready. And who do we hear outside? Matt. Matt and his group are outside.
He's ready to wake the dead.
Yeah. And then Lori goes out there with a whistle and is blowing the whistle in Matt's face. And I would have drove me crazy. But
yeah.
Scene.
Well, it's interesting because in some of the things he says, no matter what we've suffered, we're still alive. We still feel pain and sorrow. We still feel loss. We still feel love. So I didn't think about this until I read this now, is the sense that it's everything the opposite of what Patty said to Lori in the diner, so that Lori's counteracting it by making a higher pitched sound, preventing
But
that message from coming through.
Isn't Matt just doing what the GR do?
Yeah.
Well, according to Caleb,
Except he's talking.
Yeah, they're both recruiting in different ways.
Right.
Two Colts. I agree with Caleb. Two Colts.
Anything else we got on this last scene, or do we want to get to?
Well, Jill.
Ethan's?
Well, he goes home still, right?
Yeah, Kevin
goes
tells
home.
Did he
Jill,
go home?
Yeah.
Kevin tells Jill they're
That's
getting
right,
a
yeah.
divorce.
On this
And
page.
I love how Jill said that, it wasn't his fault. Because I feel like Kevin is just trying to maintain control over everything, work and family and the departure. And it's all just slipping from his fingers. He can't get anything. There's a moment in the show where Amy finally said something like, I can't get it right with Jill, and then Amy said, now you're getting it.
Yeah.
As in, like, nobody's got it figured out. You might as well stop trying, but I thought it was.
She's Jill.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And in many ways, and it's a shame we skipped over that scene in the recap, but this last scene really is like the bookend to that, in the sense that of all the bad things that happened this episode, and a lot of bad things happened, that this is probably the only positive, in the sense that he achieved this sort of, this final scene. And of course, actually, this isn't the final scene, right? The final scene is Gladys.
I skipped a page. I have another.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
No, go ahead. No, you guys, you got it.
The final scene is. Are we moving on to the?
Well, I just want to say one thing about Jill.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say that I think Caleb was right a couple episodes ago, and I think she's way more emotionally prepared for this than Kevin is. As far as finding out about the divorce and everything, and I noticed that this time. Thanks to Caleb. So thank you.
Well, I think there's a nice parallel with this episode, because at the beginning, Lori has the panic attack, and then at the end, Kevin's not just like sobbing and crying on the, he's like hyperventilating, and I feel like he's having a panic attack also. So you have these two people,
Good point, yeah.
And then knowing the medication and the, psychness of everything that comes later, and the little sprinkles in this episode, it kind of really drives home, that fact.
Well, then we go to Gladys, and they're at the Fed's building. Now, are all those people, we're going to assume they're all GRs, or were GRs?
Well, some sort of cult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they send Gladys down, and she's on going towards the cremation machine. What do they call it? Cremator? What are they?
Crematorium?
It's crematorium. That's it. She's going down, and then we know that Gladys is hot.
Yeah, fire is good. It does burn her up until she's all but ash.
Yeah.
Despite all of her best efforts.
But why was she the martyr if the doubt got to her?
I'm just saying literally, not figuratively.
I know, but that's why I'm saying why was she the martyr?
Well, you could argue that because she actually did speak when she was being hit by the stones.
Ooh.
That she did. That was her sign of doubt at that moment, right?
That Patty knew that she wasn't where she needed to be after learning that about her son that died, and how she took her to the diner too and did the same thing Lori did. And maybe that was a way to scare Lori, like what happened to Gladys can happen to you.
I saw a parallel with the way that the episode before this started and the way this one ended. It started with them making the baby Jesus in the factory.
Mm-hmm.
And it ended with the factory workers still working, but this time they're cataloging all these cult members.
Yep.
A lot of cult members.
Yeah.
And just cataloging them and burning them. Just like they go into work,
yeah,
they catalog, they burn. And
I mean, Ethan, they do, I hate to say it in these terms, but they do such a good job in the show of really hammering home the banality of evil.
Sure.
And I actually feel really bad that the first time we watched this, I didn't pick up on all this stuff.
No.
there's a lot I didn't pick up on. Like I said, the thing that stood out to me when I first watched it was that conversation with Kalani at the end.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So,
all right, should we do some spoilers?
Okay, and that is scene. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go to some spoilers.
Okay, so what do I got? Patty is talking to Gladys. They are, in fact, planning her death. In the book, the two members of GR go off to a cabin, and they're supposed to. One is supposed to shoot the other.
Right.
Their end in the book is one is supposed to shoot. Is that okay for a spoiler? Book spoiler.
Mm-hmm.
Shoot the other one in the head, and then the other one gets taken away.
Okay.
By the GR somehow. So the death is different, but in the GR you move up until you go with your partner in to kill one of them.
And it goes along the whole thing of the notion of what the stuff that Patty was talking about in the diner, in the sense that it's not supposed to be easy, right? You're supposed to be sacrificing stuff, right? And so do we have any confirmation that that conversation that interaction that Patty and Gladys have at the beginning of this episode gets referenced later in the season? I've forgotten.
It does.
Okay.
It does. And I guess that's the other big spoiler I didn't write down is the GR did kill Gladys. Because
so if they did, who's throwing the bricks?
The GR did.
I know the GR, but who from the GR? Because their aim was spot on.
Well, first of all, they're really close. It's not baseball length here.
I get that, but I've seen people throw.
Okay, well,
I have a son. Probably couldn't have hit it.
I guarantee you, it's guys that they dressed up in black to do that, and because it's a Damon Lindelof show, that's a
all right. I would like to springboard off that.
Okay.
You got one more? Keep going.
I got a couple more.
Okay, go. Keep going.
So we know that Lori knows Gladys before the departure. Tried to get a dog from her. We know that Matt does, in fact, get a chance to pray over Patty's real body later on. Dean says, how do we know we didn't do them ourselves? We know that they did. We know that Lori is Patty's psychiatrist, and that Neil is Patty's husband, who has kicked her out of the house. And I think Lori's advice to her was like, get shit in a bag and put it on his doorstep or something like that. The Doubting Thomas thing comes back again hard in season 2 with John Murphy. And so a lot of things come back in this episode that actually come back in International Assassin. The way Kevin goes through his drawers, the way he opens up his drawers, like that happens like 3 or 4 times in this episode. So do the alarms, right, Eckhart?
Mm-hmm.
And hey guys, you guys are so sure. Now I'm second guessing myself, but those aren't Kevin's shirts. He takes out two of random people's white shirts. They just find white shirts and give them to him because he's been nailing his shirts up to trees in the forest in Cairo, New York. When he finds them nailed to the trees.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Oh,
right. And those shirts, I believe, have a Mapleton badge on them.
You let me say all that about the shirts, and now
you let yourself say it.
Well, you're so good. You were convincing me. I was like, should I even mention it?
Okay.
You know
Well, Ethan, I want you to know I was always with you, even though I forgot that detail, because just the way that the guy.
Yeah, so did I. I forgot all about it.
Like,
So we need to notice if the shirts are like baggier or not, moving forward, or tighter. Maybe they're tighter. He's in enough shirtless things.
those are
I can't punch you, Lou.
And this is not a spoiler. That's my last one. But this is not a spoiler, but I think it needs to be mentioned that from here on out, with Mimi Leader directing it here, and you just notice from the first time, like this gravitas between whatever happens in the cold open and the beginning of this music that happens at the beginning, the theme title, it has every episode from now on for the rest of the season is so much heavier. It means so much more. Next week with Nora, and then with Senior, and then with, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
It's we're going to punch you in the face, and then here comes the music. And it's one of my favorite things about this episode.
Good. All right. So what I want to talk about is since we're already in like at the 70-minute mark, so I'd like to talk about Jack's crackpot theory on this episode from the original podcast. And I think I'm actually going to read it because I felt like it was so wonderful that everyone who's listening to this or watching this should hear it too. So what he said is, and you can see a lot of it came up tonight, he says, the two people throwing the rocks, they were throwing it like they knew how to throw a baseball or football. They knew how to do it. If you go back and watch, they're throwing it. But the two people holding the flashlight, I think it's the twins. They were a little smaller and in the back, but the two guys are the very two strong women. They were throwing it like they're throwing something before. You know, it wasn't like you, and I guess he's talking to Jay. If you had been throwing the rock, the first one that hit the tree, that was you. You would have been happy just getting that close. And Gladys would have been like, oh, great, it's Jay. I'll never get hit by the rock. But seriously, I think it was the twins holding the flashlight because there's something up with those twins. They're not the environmentalist friendly people we think they are. And I'm sticking with it.
Hey, I was right about Jay.
But it's just, I mean, to me, again, like the experience of watching this show or any good show like this isn't just formed by, you know, what you're watching on TV, but what people say. So that you could see, like, Jack was just so obsessed with the twins. It just kept pulling on that twins thread, right?
Because why were they there? Why?
There are twins in the book. So, you know.
The other thing I was going to say, and I'll go over this briefly, is, and we should actually share this, Ethan had a link to an Entertainment Weekly article where this woman wrote about why she quit The Leftovers. And I actually read it. And it was interesting because, again, snapshot in time. And for this, at least for this writer, like that entire episode of not just the scene of the stoning, but taking Gladys off the tree and then Laurie's flashback to it, like really like hit some nerves. And the writer of the article kept talking about how like she likes dark shows, but she felt like this was just over the top.
Well, we didn't mention either because Kevin gets upset with, I think it's Lou, right? Or it's Lou's, or not Lou's, but it's some of the police are they cut the tape, and she kind of, he's like, hey, you know, he still sees her as a human being.
Absolutely. But what's interesting is, and I'll actually read the final paragraph of this article because it really kind of showed the mindset that people have when they're watching Leftovers at the beginning. And it goes, she goes, Perotta's book never offers an explanation for the departure. Some might worry that The Leftovers, just like Lindelof's last project, Lost, will never really solve its own central mysteries. For me, the mysteries have always been the most compelling reason to keep watching. I want to know what's going on with those dogs. I'm curious what happened to Kevin's dad. I'd like to hear more about what led Laurie to the guilty remnant. And the series might answer those questions, but if it doesn't, that's life. Some mysteries will never get solved. Continuing to watch a show like this requires faith, and like the non-believers left behind in Mapleton, I'm just not certain anymore. Sometimes I imagine that the show itself is a little like the guilty remnant. Well, she's right about that. It trades in long scenes of silence, allowing facial expressions and music to communicate how it feels, though it's unclear if it's choosing to do this because silence is more powerful than words, or because it has nothing real to say. And I'm not going to wait around for the day when somebody hands me a card that says everything that matters about The Leftovers is what's inside, because sadly, I fear that the inside is blank. So my takeaway from this is actually somebody who was pretty intelligent, right? I mean, but evidently impatient and just a lazy watcher.
Do you think some of these people do it to get people riled up, so they'll read it and they'll share it to someone else and share it to someone else? And
well, of course, that's part of it, but I think she probably did quit.
No, I'm saying about that. She mentioned the Lost part where they, you know,
she's pissed off about that, so now she has to hate on the next show.
But the point is that, like, you can see, like, that there's a certain. The reason I shared that last paragraph was like there was a certain like instant gratification aspect to all of this that The Leftovers just isn't. I mean, it's the opposite.
All right.
I would like to say something about that. And how she did mention, like you said in the article, that there's these long scenes of things that don't happen or whatever. And I have a film degree, and one of the first things a lot of people know this is that they tell you is that you show, don't tell. And I read an article several years ago, I think after The Leftovers ended, but they were like, this is the perfect example of doing the opposite, where this show tells you a lot and doesn't necessarily shows it to you.
Oh, okay.
And that's why I go back to Believing Nora. So throwing that in there. But yeah, I think it's a great example of, instead of the classic showing, I think they do a lot of telling and not showing. The Australian woman at the final season, she tells the story of her kids. Other people tell stories. We believe them. Why do we not believe Nora? Okay, that's all.
Well, I think with she was right about this show is hard, especially season 1. I mean, this was, it's right off the bat, it's brutal. I mean, it was, you see she's standing there and she's still saying stop, and the blood is just pouring down. Anytime you get a head injury, you bleed. But the final, as she said, and the next one is just bullseye right in the face,
but it doesn't happen
she goes.
again. There's nothing like that again in the series.
Well, what I'm saying is, though, season 1, though, it is dark and depressing, and it's just there's not a lot of laughter, and that's why the twins would have been better if they would have been evil. But anyway, I just I can see why. Again, I have never had a problem with why people quit season 1. I do tell them they should go back and watch season 2 and 3, though, because if you haven't seen it, it's incredible.
I mean, to me, the article is ironic because of the sense that, of kind of what Ethan said, in the sense that this might have been the nadir in terms of the violence, but it's just like, and again, we have the benefit of hindsight, but it's like, why are you giving up on something that's obviously so good, right? It just makes you look like an idiot now in 2021, right?
Yeah.
And in each episode from here on out, some people don't think episode 7 is good. I do. I mean, this starts the beginning of the thing I love the most of The Leftovers is starting with episode 5 and 6 of the first season straight on through. So, I mean,
and I would add this. I should have said this at the beginning of the segment.
Yeah, you should have. No, okay.
What Leftovers requires you to do is to be able to really maintain a lot of different plots and emotions and aspects at once. And this writer obviously was so fixated on the stoning scene that she missed all the other stuff that we talked about tonight.
Right.
And honestly, that could have been a really, that could have been a trigger for her, as a writer and as just a person. You mentioned Breaking Bad earlier with the Heisenberg. I know enough about that show to know that, but there was the scene in season 2, I think, the overdose scene. I had a friend who died very similarly, and after that, I was like, I can't watch the show, and I was done. I don't really have anything to say about the show other than that. I actually think we did try to finish it, and we got to the Fly episode, and I was like, I can't do it. So there was that plus that, and I was just like. So, everybody's going to come at this with their different experiences, and it's a dark subject. And when you have dark subjects with a lot of unfortunate events going on, it's going to feel overwhelming. And it may trigger some people.
Being stoned to death is a gruesome way to die. I mean, obviously, I still remember I think it was elementary school, being shown some kind of short film where the woman's she's going to be stoned, and everyone in the town is grabbing stones, and they give a rock to her daughter. It was like 3 or 4. And I couldn't tell you what
were you watching.
I grew up in the rough times, it was in the 60s, so it was tough. But I still remember that the scene where I couldn't tell you what it was about. I just remember the daughter being handed a rock that she was going to throw at her own mom. I don't know if the mom did. I can't remember.
Was it the lottery? Shirley Jackson's Lottery?
It might have been. That might have been it. That sounds familiar.
Which is, by the way, we're connecting the dots now. I read Shirley Jackson in high school, which is a lot of quirky stuff like this, and it explains why I'm so fascinated by The Leftovers, right?
Yeah, we were allowed to watch stuff like that as a kid.
It wasn't The Life of Brian, was it? Monty Python.
No,
The Life of Brian.
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. No.
Okay.
Well,
Okay, so
Stoning-
an entertainment writer for this publication who is covering The Leftovers for Entertainment Weekly, should have known that Damon Lindelof went out there pretty heavy to say that mystery was not going to be solved.
It was said before it even aired.
A lot.
Yes,
And
it
she
wasn't.
mentioned
It wasn't a secret.
She said they don't answer it in the book. Well, why do you think he's going to answer it in the show?
Yes.
I agree.
All right,
I mean-
Ethan. So every 2 weeks, we have to find an article that shreds The Leftovers, and we have to shred the article. That's going to be my segment.
Well, I don't think there are any more after this. I think that's the last one.
Right, she was the last
Yeah.
negative Nelly to quit.
She went out in a blaze of glory, though. Big letters. This is dark. I'm out. So.
Again, I have no problem with that. I mean, I see it. I understand it. But, there's no reason to drag Lost into it.
I know.
You're going to say they were dead the whole time? Well, that's all we got.
Okay.
Yeah, they weren't dead the whole time.
Okay.
We'll be back next week on the 18th of April for Nora's episode. It's not one you're going to want to miss. I think this is going to be, but from what I remember, I think this is a good episode. Any Nora.
We stand Nora.
And Nora was telling the truth at the end.
Absolutely.
Anyway. That's all I got. We're out of here, guys.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.